How's it going, guys? Welcome to day 7. Today we're doing verse 4 bets. So we start off here in the cutoff. If we look up, so under the gun +2 opens to 2 big blinds. We 3 bet in the cutoff with kings, standard play. Facing a 4 bet from under the gun +2, 3x. Definitely not calling. All in could be a play here because if we go 33 big blinds, we're looking at about a stack to pot ratio of about 1-ish anyways. So money will go in regardless. But I would. I potentially lean towards an all in here. Try to get called by under pairs. That would most likely, that might call the 4 bet. Well, sorry, the 5 bet. In terms of like queens, jacks. That might, but then will fold to an overcard. Similar to ace king hands would probably call a jam. But would not call unless they hit an ace or a king on the flop. But then potentially, if we do the 5 bet here, he might put in the all in and then we can just snap call. But my personal thinking is, because if we go 33, worst case scenario, we win 18 or 19.5 bigs. Best case scenario, well, and then if he calls, that's going to be 66 bigs in the pot, leaving about 44 bigs. No, leaving about 67 bigs behind with 66 bigs in the middle. So, yeah, like I said, stack to pot ratio is so low that you're just going to be all in with any pair pretty much on the flop here. But I reckon if we go all in, we might, like, queens might fold, jacks might fold, but they also might call. So I'm going to lean towards the 5 bet. Under the gun calls, board comes 6-5 deuce. Now we just go all in. And they fold. Okay. So, yeah, so we should have gone all in. Yep. Alright, so go all in, try to get a call. But ace 10 is probably folding there anyways. Also says call at 15%. I guess the idea of the call is you keep in a lot of dominated hands, such as ace 10, that you might be able to induce a bluff from, I guess, or get some more money from hoping that they catch up with something worse than a pair of kings. So yeah, no, I reckon the all-in is a better play there. Majority of the time, just happily take down 18 big blinds, and then get called by worse, get called by ace king, get called by queens, get called by jacks. So yeah, I agree with the all-in there. Basically, just trying to get the money in before any bad cards can come for your opponent, and you could still get like ace queen suited to call at some frequency. Ace jack probably not, but yeah, definitely agree with the all in there. Moving on, we got under the gun +2 opens, folds around to us in the cutoff. We 3 bet with ace 4 suited as a bluff in order to balance our 3 betting range. Folds back around to under the gun +2, who then 4 bets to 20. This is going to be a standard fold. Very, very strong range from under the gun +2 here when not only they open, but then they do a 4 bet, knowing that they're going to be playing out of position, heads up. So pretty standard fold there. So we can look over here in the info graphic. Pretty much just looking at the only real bluffs they have are some ace suited hands, some frequency, some king suited hands, and then aside from that, pretty much everything else is beating us in terms of value, and we're talking range versus range. So very standard fold there. Moving on to the next hand, cutoff opens to 2.5. We three bet in. We three bet in the on the button. Sorry, we three bet on the button. Both blinds fold, and then we face a 4-bet from the cutoff. Ace 10 just going to be dominated by a lot of the 4-bet range, so I reckon it's going to be a standard fold, as even if we do hit our ace, as we can see by the cutoff's range here on the left-hand side, going to be very, very strong, and we're most likely going to get out-kicked in a lot of situations, even when we do hit an ace. And then in addition to that, we don't really have much post-flop playability with ace 10 offsuit. Pretty much all we have is hitting that top pair, and that's pretty much it there. So standard fold. Moving on to the next hand, we got hijack opening, folds around to us in the big blind. We 3-bet with ace 4 offsuit. Trying to balance our 3-bet frequencies, facing a all-in jam, or all-in 4-bet jam from the hijack. This is once again going to be a standard call, losing to pretty much their entire range, out-kicked as we are here, and then only really got about 30% equity against all of these pocket pairs, with the ace being really only our only overcard to their pocket pairs, and then the only other things they're going to be jamming are going to be stronger ace X's there. So we're pretty much losing to their entire value range, essentially, and they just don't have enough bluffs there, and we're also behind a lot of their bluffs as well. Similar situation, we're in the small blind this time, however, cutoff opens. We 3-bet in the small blind. Cutoff does a 4-bet. With ace-jack suited, we do have a little bit of playability with, obviously, the suited. We can hit a flush, but then there's no real straight draws there, and then aside from that, we are very polarized. We're most likely, so small blinds 3-bet here is incredibly strong, as we wouldn't be 3-betting a lot of hands due to not only us being incentivized to call in a lot of situations and just complete, but in addition, we are going to be first to act in every post-flop situation, and we're going to be playing majority, and especially with the big blind acting behind as well. We're going to have a very, very strong range here. So when the cutoff 4-bets what is our very, very strong range, that means that they equally have to have a very, very strong range to be comfortable in order to do that. And then, yes, they could have some bluffs here, such as like your ace-suited hands that we actually have dominated in a 70-30 capacity. However, I just don't think they're going to have enough of that for this to be profitable in the long run, so I reckon this is going to be a fold, with the idea that we're most likely going to be out-kicked in a lot of situations. However, this is considered the wrong move. They're saying that we should be calling here, and then even doing a 5-bet 5% of the time, and then an all-in 29% of the time. If we look over at the ranges here, so they do have, as you can clearly see from left versus right, they have a clear range advantage on the right-hand side there. As it turns out, they are here bluffing with the king-jack suited in order to balance their range a little bit. Well, king-jack offsuit, actually, which is at an even lower frequency. But they're saying more just call, take some flops, I guess, because we have the suited. And like trying to play the flops, but I would think that we'd be more looking to play flops if we were in position, as then we can utilize our position to kind of steal a lot of pots, and we have far more chance of winning the hand, or at least getting a cheap showdown in a lot of situations, or even just a cheap turn, for example, as they would most likely check a lot of their range. I would have thought that we would be folding here just due to, like I was talking about, being dominated in a lot of situations, and then maybe flipping in some situations as well. Just thinking that if we're talking range versus range, that they have a far greater range advantage against us. and they're going to be going into it with the initiative, as I don't really believe we would want to be going all in or doing a 5-bet here, because we'll be isolating way too much for a range, or we're just looking to take down the 24 bigs if we have some form of read to suggest that they're weighted towards bluffs. But then even if you believe they're weighted towards bluffs, you might want to be just calling here just to keep in those bluffs to try and maximize your money from them. So I definitely can understand the call, but I would lean towards more of a fold, just due to thinking we're going to be outkicked a lot of situations. But I guess in addition, that might be strengthening or over tightening our 4-bet calls, or 4-bet, or our 5-bets even. If we're going to be folding ace jack, it really limits the floor that we have. Moving on to the next hand here, very standard, no real need to talk about it. We have aces facing an all-in. Regardless of what the play is, we have aces facing an all-in, so standard call. But what the play was low jack opened when the small blind, and we 3-bet facing just an all-in shove, which makes very, very little sense from the low jack here, as we would most likely, sure, we could be calling with queens and jacks, but we still have far more in our range that they would want to at least keep in the hand. Yes, I definitely reckon they should be 4-betting there without a doubt, just 4-betting to a smaller size. If we go 10, they go something more like a 22, somewhere around that range, in order to still be taking the betting initiative, but still keep SPR low-ish enough to the point where there's still a little bit of flexibility. Or maybe they would want to size up even more to almost make the SBR to a point where it's just an all-in on the flop. But either way, an all-in here is just kind of isolating too much of a very, very strong, like, it's either saying, hey, I want to win 10 big blinds, or you're isolating a range that you could either be really in fantastic shape, or well, I guess granted, there's only really one hand that you're going to be isolating that has you beat, essentially, but you're kind of going, okay, we're going to get rid of all of the hands that we can get value from that are worse than us, that they could be calling our 4-bet, smaller size obviously, that we can get value from, that we have dominated, and that type of stuff. So I don't really understand it all in here from the GTO, but I reckon it was more like a 5%, 10% type of thing, just to keep it different. But yeah, very standard call there with aces. No real brainer, and if you're not putting all your money in when you got aces pre-flop, then you shouldn't be playing poker. It's a very simple thing. Next hand, hijack opens. We 3-bet in the cutoff, folds back around to the hijack, who then 4-bets. Queen jack suited facing a 4-bet. We do have position, so I might be waiting towards a call there. But queen jack's probably going to be outkicked in a lot of situations, but we are suited as well with some post-flop playability. So I'm leaning towards a fold, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a call here in a decent frequency. No, it's just a flat-out fold. Okay, never mind. I thought a little bit, just due to, we do have position, we are suited, they are connected as well, that we might have a little bit of playability post-flop, but I suppose that it's mostly just thinking in terms of the we're going to be outkicked in a lot of situations. We're going to be putting ourselves into tough situations where we might have top pair, but we're very relative marginal kicker. When you're talking about a 4-bet pot, a jack's not a good kicker. It's more of, granted, if we're talking about single raise pots, jack's probably a pretty good kicker in a lot of situations, but when you're talking more about a 4-bet pot, jack's most likely going to be, it should be treated as a marginal kicker in order to not overplay your hand. So yeah, we are dominated in a lot of situations there, so the fold makes plenty of sense, but I would have thought there would be a little bit of a percentage of a call there, just to kind of mix in or balance your range with some. It's essentially is a suited connector, but I guess you would much rather more of a non-dominated suited connector, like a 7-8 suited, 8-9 suited, etc., etc. Moving on to the next hand, low jack opens. Under the gun opens, so very, very strong range to start off with here. We 3-bet in the low jack, folds back around to under the gun, who then 4-bets. Going to be an extremely tight range here, because under the gun does, not only does under the gun's open range start off as very tight, but then under the gun, knowing that low jack has 3-bet their tight range, they're going to have a tighter range when they're deciding to 4-bet, and the idea that low jack's got to have a good hand, or at least a tight range to go up against the under the gun here. So facing the 4-bet here, if we call, that will be just an extra 12, so about 41.5 bigs in the pot, leaving about 80 behind, so about a stack to pot ratio of 2-ish. So pretty much getting it all in with a pair, essentially, here. We could, so I'm kind of leaning towards a 5-bet here, 5-bet then jam, or 5-bet induce a jam, and then call that. So that's what I'm going to do. I reckon we 5-bet if he calls. Okay, so he calls. Ace is not ideal at all, but stack to pot ratio is pretty much at a 1 here. So I'm kind of leaning towards a check back, and just kind of bluff catching, thinking that we could be up against when he doesn't shove on the flop here. We might be able to take out aces, ace king, unless they're trapping. So we're kind of just thinking that we might be up against an underpair here, some queens or jacks. So we're going to check one more time, trying to induce a bluff on the river here. Okay, though this is rarely used, so I'm guessing we've done something horrifically wrong here. But my mindset originally was, okay, we're going to try and bluff catch for some underpairs to the ace, or not put ourselves in a situation where we're going to be up against, we're going to get what in reality here is, in terms of they've hit an ace and we're just going to get value owned. Okay, so they're saying should have just jammed. Okay, once again, does make sense to me. I guess the idea is there's no point in raising if you're just going to be getting a stack to pot ratio on the flop. I think that was a similar situation as to what I had in this hand down here, in terms of, so I once again did a raise and they called, so clearly didn't learn from that one, even though it was just a couple minutes ago. But so I reckon got to be going all in there. If it's if a raise will get the stack to pot ratio to 1 or in and around 1, and you're going to be all in anyways, so better to go all in, realize the equity, and then you could even just take down the pot unchallenged. Okay, so we've got to get that in through our minds. Make sure if the stack to pot ratio is going to be in and around 1, so 1 to 2 pretty much, or pretty much less than 2, and you're going to be all in on the flop anyways, better to jam, realize your equity, or even take down the pot there and then. And then if we go through the other plays, so under the gun checking here, standard. The check from us, so they're saying we should bet 10% pot, little low bet. I'm assuming the concept is bet low, try to induce them to raise their aces now, because they wouldn't raise an ace right on the flop. They would probably check, similar to what they did here. So that makes sense. Then once again, they check. I'm surprised why they're checking here, not trying to go for some thin value. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because obviously I'm not going to have any 5s or 4s. I'm probably not going to have a flush draw majority of the time. I could have same type of hand. But once again, so they're saying, once again, bet nice and small, don't check. My idea with the check was, like I was talking about, try to induce a bluff from hands that we are beating, because my idea is, okay, what's the best way to get value from a hand that I'm beating? The best way that I believe to get value from queens, jacks, is to check and induce some bluff, and almost just bluff catch, try to make them think that you don't have the ace. And then they check again, and then we check, but there's no solution for that, due to the fact that they're saying that we shouldn't be checking 2 times here. I guess they're trying to say, you should be going for thin value against like queens and jacks. But I believe that queens and jacks would probably snap fold when the ace comes out here a lot of the time. And I reckon you're only really going to get value from them if you induce the bluff majority of the time, I believe. And it might be a little bit too thin to go for value, especially when you got kings and you're blocking there's only one more combo of kings that would be probably decently comfortable of calling the 4-bet and then still calling for thin value on the ace high board. So yeah, I agree. Should have jammed pre-flop, realize your equity, either take down the pot there and then if it's a bluff, or like I said, realize your equity and you might be up against aces, but you got kings, and like I said beforehand, if you're good enough to fold kings, then fair play to you. Okay, so low jack open folds around to us in the small blind. We 3-bet with 10s, very standard. Big blind folds. This is going to be a very strong range from us in the small blind, with big blind to act behind. We know that we're going to have to act first. With 10s here in the small blind, I could hear a call like it's between a fold and a call. The 4-bet makes no... Well, sorry, the 5-bet makes no sense because we're only going to get called by better. And we'll probably just get jammed, and also that puts us in a similar situation that we had with both of our kings hands in terms of we're getting the stack to pot ratio so low to the point where we're going to be all in on the flop anyways, and if there's an overcard, then well, we're kind of just throwing money down the drain essentially. But facing so low jack, I just believe we're not in very good shape here a lot of the time, but we could be flipping. So this could be a call, take a flop. We are going to be very polarized, however. And when they 4-bet, what is our strong small blind range? I'm going to lean towards a fold. Yep, good fold. Okay. So it's about a 60-40. So pretty much what I said, between a call and a fold. Call, take some flops. You are flipping, or at least if there's no high card, you could be ahead of a lot of ace highs that you could try to get some thin value from, such as like ace king high, like the nut high essentially. But even that would be very thin value as well. So yeah, pretty much call there, with the best case scenario being you're 50-50 with them. And then pretty much no point in 5 betting, because you're just going to be isolating too much of a strong range that you're just completely dominated by. Okay, so next hand, under the gun opens. We 3-bet with kings in the cutoff. Under the gun then 4 bets. So I reckon, so we learnt this from last time. Shove all in here is the play. They'd have aces in this occasion, but we should be shoving all in there. The idea being, if we do a 5-bet, we're going to have the stack to pot ratio so low that we're just going to be all in anyways. Might as well realize the equity now, and this is probably the scenario when we're most likely to get called by worse, because queens probably would find a hard time to fold, jacks might fold a decent frequency, and then yeah, obviously we'll get snapped off by aces, and then we can take down the 19.5 bigs when they are bluffing, when they're trying to balance their 4-bet bluff range, or their 4-bet range by bluffing. But yeah, the standard all in there. Okay, well, there's day 7. Lot to learn from still. So we're going to be moving on to the next category now for the next day, and then. So it will be probably about a week until we get back to this 4-bet, but we've learnt a lot from this one. Hope you guys learnt as well. Enjoy, play well. I'll see you in the next one.